More and more charges for Trump. We're on indictment watch. The breakdown starts now. Good evening and welcome to the breakdown. I am Tara Setmayer. This is the Rick Wilson. And
as always,
yes, we've got some breaking news as we were coming on air tonight. We've been on this indictment watch, right, Rick? I feel like it's Anchorman, Panda Watch. Well, it's indictment watch again for us. And we thought we were going to hear some more from Jack Smith
Luke was a
about
mistake.
6th. Right. Boy, that really escalated quickly. Well, it's escalating quickly for Donald Trump because we thought we were going to get possibly the January 6th related indictment from Jack Smith's office today, but instead we got a superseding indictment, more charges against Donald Trump for the Mar-a-Lago document case, and not only more charges, another co-conspirator. This dumbass pool maintenance guy that got involved in the conspiracy, Carlos de Oliveira. He's now been charged alongside Trump and Walt Nauta with obstruction of justice and destruction of evidence. If you remember, there was the story that came out that the pool room, this pool area, this room near the pool in Mar-a-Lago that housed the surveillance servers was flooded. Was it an accident? Did a hurricane come through? What? No. These idiots conspired to get rid of the surveillance footage so that the grand jury and the investigators would not get it. So they couldn't see them moving the boxes around. Well, guess what? They got it. And now this guy is in big shit trouble also. Rick, like, what is wrong with these people that think that Donald Trump's going to protect them?
From the Watergate era, these were not very bright guys and things got out of hand.
Clearly.
I got to say, the idea that Donald Trump is a criminal mastermind is one that I think our friends on the left often, he's surrounded by people who could be criminal masterminds, the Bannons of the, but as a general rule, Trump, like a lot of men, marry down or laterally. Trump hires down or laterally. This is a guy who hired dumb people to work for him because he doesn't want anybody around him who he thinks is smarter. Now,
he actually said that, by the way, people.
Yes.
Like, Rick's not making that up. He said that. There's video of it, and he was speaking to students when he said it. Go ahead.
But what you have now is one more example of criminal intent in this case. And for all of it, none of this evidence has been exculpatory for Trump. None of this evidence has worked the ratchet backward for Trump. He's in more and more trouble all the time. Now, is he in legal trouble? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Is he going to do even better in the presidential primary now? Absolutely.
Yep, which is actually what we were planning to talk about tonight. We're going to get to that in a second because things are heating up in the GOP primary. Not for DeSantis, though. DeSantis is in complete disarray. His campaign is in a death spiral. Not where you want to be 2 months into your campaign. And we're going to talk about that in a second. And this no label stuff is still going on. The Republican Party they are just flailing about trying to distract the American people from what the hell's going on here with Donald Trump in this race. So they're going after Barbie. They're putting up Hunter Biden porno pictures in committee hearings. They're having UFO committee hearings. I mean, it's insane what's going on in the GOP. But because of this breaking news, we're going to start off with the Trump indictment, and we'll get to all the DeSantis stuff because we've got a lot to say about that. We debuted a new ad today called Frenzy. We're going to get to that, and we've got lots of good Lincoln Project content to show you guys if you have not seen it yet. And we have some new video editors and some of their stuff tonight we're going to show you. We've got lots. It's an action-packed show. But this idea, Rick, like you said, that even though we're a little gleeful that Donald Trump is starting to face some accountability for his criming, politically, this has not damaged him at all. It's helped him. And there's just this infuriating cognitive dissonance that's going on within the party that sane people just will never understand. How is it that people are continuing to support Donald Trump? The more criming is uncovered, the more they want to support him.
And the madness here is that there are still people who believe that somehow you can convince the Republican base voters to stay away from Trump.
Right.
That somehow you can give them some moral example, and they'll say, well, that's the crime. That's my last felony indictment. I'm done now.
Right.
You'll never walk away. So all these people that are like, we have to beat Trump in the primary. Oh, how? Would you like to just give me a pathway for one of these mooks to get past him? Because as of today, the only pathway they had was for Ron DeSantis or Tim Scott or somebody else to win Iowa so they could come out of it and set a new narrative and say, hey, I'm the guy who can beat Trump.
Right.
As of today, Trump is over 50% in Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
DeSantis is almost in the single digits in New Hampshire. None of these people are going to beat this guy. Remember, Trump is over 50% in Iowa, a state he's not strong in.
Right. A state that he lost the first time around.
He's a degenerate whoremonger
in the primary.
Put it in blunt terms. And they're if he's at 50% right now,
they're not catching him.
They're not catching him.
They're not going to catch him.
Look, Ron DeSantis has been stepping on his dick so hard the last month. And it was like, hey, Ron, can you do a little worse for us in the campaign over the weekend? And it was like, hold my Bavarian stout.
Right.
I'm going to have my neo-Nazis on the staff and everything else come out. This was the great hope to beat Trump. Get out of here.
Listen, I was at a reception last night for the Harvard summer program. And so, one of my good friends is a conservative commentator who's in that world. And we were talking about this. And I said, DeSantis looks like shit. Like, you guys thought that this was going to be the guy that was going to be the Trump slayer.
This guy.
And she acknowledged, she said, look, he's in a death spiral. And people in Iowa are looking elsewhere. And it looks like Tim Scott is on the rise. He's got a lot of money. Yeah. And I looked at her and I said, are you kidding me? You think Tim Scott's going to take out Donald Trump? Give me a break. The guy can't even acknowledge that there's still racism in America. Right. Okay. And you think he's going to take out Donald Trump? No.
Right. Exactly.
He's a racial pacifier. And I will continue to say that.
Right. Where he's not going to win the Republican primary. And the first one that he's black. And the second one, we'll get to that point when we get to that point. But that guy has no chance in any environment of winning the Republican primary.
None.
And you could throw $1 billion after him, and Larry Ellison has already put like 30 or 40 million in there. It's not going to happen.
No, it's emotional.
The guys around Glenn Youngkin, who is going to be the guy that comes up after Tim Scott flames out.
Please.
They're looking at the field and going, real talk, we're not going to make this investment. Because, what American MAGAs are crying out for is not a guy from a hedge fund who wears a sweater vest.
Correct.
They want the crazy. They want the Trump. And they're, by God, going to get it whether we think it's a good idea or not.
Yeah, that's true. And Tim Scott is the Herman Cain's of Ben Carson's. Like he is he's just someone that they feel like they can feel good about. Well, if we give money to the black guy, then that means that we don't support the racism that's going on in the Republican Party because we're giving the money to the black guy. Police, just stop it. It's so transparent. Get out of here. They're not. So just to button up the breaking news before we move on to last week in the Republican Party, because I know people anxiously await for that. We've got a superseding indictment on the Mar-a-Lago documents case. We've got a third co-conspirator in this idiot, Carlos de Oliveira, who was the pool maintenance guy who helped them try to flood the pool area that had the surveillance servers. And apparently in this indictment, I was only able to skim it really fast because I was getting ready for the show. But there are other employees that these guys were trying to convince to help them cover this up. This is really bad, super, super bad for Donald Trump and for Walt Nauta and for Carlos de Oliveira. So stay tuned for that. While we get the gremlins out of Rick's internet, we're going to show you last week in the Republican Party and come right back. Take a look.
Have you ever flushed the toilet and the water starts rising.
Getting indicted and arrested by sick government thugs would be my great honor.
That foot-long Titan turkey, I think they call it, will make you very regular.
Sharks are not the only predators that are into cocaine.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Disney's firing 6 of the dwarfs.
I was just on an oil rig in Texas. It's the most patriotic thing I've ever seen.
How does it feel to be portrayed as an idiot, a bigot, or a sad, rather pathetic loser?
I feel kind of marginalized.
If COVID was anything, it was an effort to exterminate Christendom throughout the earth.
Hank Aaron, real person, great American, passed away after he got the vaccine.
Mr. Kennedy, I want to ask you specifically about the Hunter Biden laptop story.
Hunter Biden paid for this woman to do this with him.
The proof is in the pudding.
Donald Trump is leading in the polls because, as I've already said, Pastor Gene, he is God's anointed. I don't care about his personal life. He's God's anointed.
The leftists believe in demons and politics at the same time.
I do not think that this society is racist.
Slaves did develop skills while they were enslaved and then used those skills as blacksmiths, as in agriculture.
I do not think that racism is a determining force in the lives of most people.
Enough of the gay pride flags. How about this flag?
We're going to be launching an inquiry about Bud Light.
Here we are now funding this war in Ukraine against Russia.
I'm Stephen Miller, founder and president of America First Legal, a charitable foundation dedicated to defending your rights in court. I am here today with an urgent message. America's biggest corporations and universities are illegally discriminating against Americans based on race and sex.
Stephen Miller freaks me out at a level.
He's so creepy. He's so creepy. He looks like he like Burns from The Simpsons. He looks like his long lost son.
He's the host.
Oh God! And what the hell is that with that Mark Burns, the black guy who said that Donald Trump's anointed by God and that he doesn't care about his personal life? Do you remember him? That guy?
I do remember him, and
you remember
and apparently he wants to come back and be like, "Yep, oh, he's a total scammer. He's a complete
fraud.
Scammer."
He lied about his entire resume, and a couple of years ago, my former colleague over there at CNN did an interview with him and called him out on all of the lies in his resume, stuff that was made up. And he just stared at him and like got up and walked out of the interview. I mean, just walked out. He didn't have anything to say. He literally had to walk out.
That's a sign you're doing great.
Yeah.
You're doing great.
Right. And he crawled under a rock for a little while. Now he's back because, you know, they've got to have their step and fetchits out there. I just cannot. Some of those things in that last week in the Republican Party, we're going to talk about right now because it involves Ron DeSantis. What were they talking about with this whole thing that slavery is, there was a benefit to Black people who were enslaved and that they learned skills. This is real, people. If you haven't heard, Florida, Ron DeSantis' state, has now passed new curriculum standards for teaching history, where there is a passage in this that says that they need to teach now that there were benefits, but there was beneficiary. They were beneficiaries of slavery because they learned how to.
People who were enslaved learned valuable skills.
Yeah. Yes.
And look,
as if they didn't have skills before, like when they stole them from Africa, that people in Africa didn't have skills already, that they weren't living like in their communities, providing food and shelter for their own people before they were snatched away. Give me a break. They were enslaved.
The inexcusable
against
nature
their will
is something they're really desperately trying to rewrite. And I had Kevin Cruz on my podcast this week talking about like the desperate desire on the right to remake history and to clean it up and to make themselves feel less guilty or less culpable. This is one of those things. It's the thin edge of the wedge. Look, the entire curriculum was not insane, but the elements in it that were invalidated the rest of the curriculum.
Yes.
Okay. There were some things in there that were truthful about slavery, but when you start to slide these little conditions and codicils and equivocations into the curriculum, that's not there for a rounded view of history. That's there so that they can keep up this lie. Oh, there are no racists in our party except for with the Nazi flags outside of synagogues all over Florida, or the guys with the swastikas and the DeSantis signs outside of Walt Disney World. These people know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. They hire people on their staff in DeSantis world who know what they're doing. And I will tell you this, the Commissioner of Education, a guy named Manny Diaz, there was a time we considered him a friend.
Wasn't he the mayor of Miami?
No, different guy.
Oh, okay.
This guy sat in my house and had dinner. Oh. And he has gone so far over the weird MAGA cliff, I can't even begin to express to you, like, I don't know who this person is anymore. But it's like when he transformed into a MAGA, it was one thing. But now with DeSantis, it's this culture war 24/7. And the idea that it's bubbling up now in the DeSantis defenders of this is, oh, well, the only people that don't want us to tell this kind of history about Black people are the JEWs. Yeah. I mean, these people are fucking nuts.
Yes, they are. And organized and well-funded, okay? See, this is where it becomes actionable.
By the way, the New York Times is on my list today. The New York Times is on my list today because they published an editorial by this guy named Christopher Rufo, who is the point man for Ron DeSantis to destroy academic freedom and academic tenure in the state of Florida and to make every university board controlled by DeSantis cronies. It's unbelievable.
Well, yeah, it contributes to the horse race intrigue that the media, mainstream media, likes to put forward because it gets eyeballs and it makes money for them. So they'll do it at the expense of platforming these horrible people under the guise of free speech and political ideas. And well, everyone should be heard. And it's normalizing behavior that is dangerous. It's just not normal, and it's dangerous, and they're well-funded and organized. You mentioned the Nazis in Florida. Not only were they marching outside of, Disney World areas and all that, they're projecting Nazi symbolism up onto buildings in Jacksonville and doing it's insane. And it just they're
getting jobs in the DeSantis campaign.
Right, and they're getting jobs in the DeSantis campaign because another DeSantis problem. But actually, before we get to that, because we're talking about the slavery thing, we this week we debuted one of the our new creative team members. They put together this really cool ad called DeSantis Trade Slave School. Take a look. It's not funny, but
we're proud of what we've done to be #1 in education freedom.
Ron DeSantis knows the importance of a good education.
But with this new bill I've signed, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Now Floridians are able to enroll at Ron DeSantis' Slave Trade School. Find out how easy it is to learn from home, just not your home, for a career in exciting fields such as
being a blacksmith.
Slaves did develop skills while they were enslaved and then used those skills as blacksmiths, as in agriculture, carpentry, tailoring, painting, domestic service, transportation, in the shipping business.
They listed everything out, and if you have any questions about it, just ask the Department of Education.
Or get your degree. You can major in rewritten history or generational trauma. Call now.
You should talk to them about it. I mean, I didn't do it, and I wasn't involved in it.
The head bobble, right? You saw I tweeted that out this week. That's the tell for DeSantis when he's defensive and nervous. That's the tell. Line. That's right. The bobblehead bullshit.
And folks, we made that ad sarcastically. Some of our new production folks who were really fantastic on this put that together, and we made it sarcastically, but it makes a point. Mm-hmm. These are people who want to rewrite history, and look, America is a glorious and phenomenal experiment in freedom. It is the light of liberty in the world in many, many ways to this very day. But we did not start that way. We have an original sin in our character as a nation that we have worked and fought and bled to heal and cure. It's still not there. It's still not all the way fixed. It's not going to be all the way fixed in our lifetimes. But as the Reverend King said, we're trying to bend the arc. And you don't bend the arc of history in the right direction. You don't bend the arc towards justice in the right direction if you're saying, well, there were some good parts about slavery, that it really
right,
wasn't.
by trying to whitewash history, that's not going to change what happened as much as they're trying. This is not 1984. It's not the Ministry of Truth. And as much as they're trying over there at Fox and Newsmax and OANN and everywhere else, and even from our House of Representatives and Kevin McCarthy and the rest of them trying to bullshit the American people into believing things that didn't take place. It's just, we cannot allow it. Now, yes, we use humor, but that's the way we draw people in to pay attention to what's going on. So another aspect, something else going on with DeSantis. This is another great week for Ron DeSantis. No, it's not.
You're doing great, Ron.
You're doing great, buddy. No, you're not. When you are 2 months into your campaign and you've had to cut staff twice in 2 weeks, that ain't a good sign. When you have stories, headline after headline about the problems in your campaign, and you've got hit pieces about your super PAC, the head of your super PAC, and how much money she's made and who she's partnered with and where that money came from and what, the knives are out in DeSantis world, cutting each other up to try to lay blame to why his campaign is doing so terribly. I can tell you why in one word: DeSantis. You can't fire the candidate.
You could bring back Lee Atwater and James Carville in their prime and throw them in that campaign. They could not turn this thing around.
No,
this is a campaign with a candidate who sucks at the work of connection, of the work of politics. And folks, you can train to a certain degree about it, okay? But it's like perfect pitch or being able to really dance. Not everybody can be trained to do it. Not everybody has the gift. And that's not a negative about DeSantis, but he doesn't even try. He tries to be the biggest asshole in the room. He tries to be, as somebody said today, enraged Dwight Schrute from The Office. And I was like,
that's perfect. A really short Dwight Schrute from The Office.
He yells at children.
Well, here's an example. Wait, we have an example of that. If you don't believe us, this is Ron DeSantis out in Iowa. This is part of the campaign reset. They made a big deal about the reset. This is DeSantis on the ground today in Iowa.
Oh, what is that? An icy? Yeah, that's probably a lot of sugar, huh? Good to see you. All right.
What a jerk off. Who wants to have a beer with that guy?
As Rex Hupke tweeted, he said, "It's like I'm tired of speaking to you, alien child."
I mean, if he sits down and who wants to have a beer with that guy? That's got a lot of froth on it, probably a lot of carbs in it. I think. I mean, he's terrible. He's
and he was
awful.
also yelling at reporters today. Because look, DeSantis has lived in this Florida media bubble where he does not answer questions from actual reporters.
Right.
There are a bunch of like stooge websites in Florida that are like MAGA true voice of the Patriots and all this crap. And he answers their questions because they always say things like, "Is it true you have the best looking wife in the field?" So when he gets out among actual reporters, he gets his head cut off. And today he was snapping and bitching at reporters. Ron, you're already on a pathway towards a humiliating defeat.
Dead man walking.
Stop digging the hole. Pull the ripcord. Get out. Run away.
Well, I think I know why he was a little crankier than usual today. Besides the fact that he had to cut a third of his staff and all the stories are coming out about their finances, they had to fire a Nazi on his staff. A guy who's a Nazi sympathizer. That's never a good sign. If part of your campaign reset includes getting rid of the Nazi sympathizer guy in your staff, that ain't a great reset. Like, you're not going anywhere.
It didn't happen. Like, we will not speak that name. We don't know who you're speaking of. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
they also got rid of a guy named Will Chamberlain, who's best friends. Yeah, well, Nate Hochman is the number one guy they fired. He was the one producing the anti-LGBT videos and the Nazi symbols in the videos. And they fired him because, from what I've been told now, yes, they were upset about the content, but they were more upset that he was putting out product from the campaign, expending campaign money, and then not putting disclaimers on it, not having it reviewed by the lawyers, and pretending it was coming from outside the campaign. You know,
Not
you and
the
I have both been
content.
around. Right. You and I have both been around long enough to know if you put out a piece of content, it gets a disclaimer on it.
That's right. You have to.
That's just how it works, folks.
Right.
You
That's
got
right.
to.
But I guess,
and-
you know, but not putting a disclaimer on the videos that you're producing that include putting Ron DeSantis's face and image behind Nazi symbols. No, they're not mad about that. What is wrong with these people? They're not mad about that because they're courting those people. They need them to vote for them. So like Florida, he's got a Nazi problem in Florida. There's a white supremacist problem in Florida. You don't believe me? Check out the Anti-Defamation League's recent report about that, or the FBI report that said that white supremacists and right-wing nuts are the biggest threat to our domestic security in this country. It's not coming from us.
Yeah, there's a group called the League of the South. It's based about 50 miles to the east of me. These people are the modern day Klan, all, you know, slightly cleaned up. They don't wear their funky white hats in public every day, but they believe in racial separation. And you know what? They protest all the time. Ron DeSantis doesn't say a word about it. Neo-Nazis protest all the time. No, they don't say a word about it. These people block the roads into synagogues. They don't say a word about it. You know why? They follow a rule that Steve Bannon set, and that rule is, I have no enemies to my right. So while they may not all be Nazis, they may not all be alt-righters, they may not all be neo-Nazis or aspiring little fascists, but they're okay with people who are, as long as they're on their side.
Yeah, and that's not okay with us, with the normies here in the world. Sorry, we don't want those people on our team. No. We have another response to this little Hitler problem that seems to be infecting the GOP and Ron DeSantis' campaign in particular. Take a look.
The top 5 Hitler stands by Republicans. Coming in at number 5, co-founder of Moms for Liberty, Tiffany Justice, at their recent annual conference.
One of our moms in a newsletter called Hitler. Woo! I stand with that, Mom.
Number 4, Candace Owens.
If Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine.
Candace helped usher in Republicans' Hitler era, shifting focus away from his atrocities. You might think number 3 goes to Donald Trump.
Trump told his chief of staff Hitler did a lot of good things.
But that was in private, unlike Carl Palladino, who publicly discussed Hitler's sex appeal.
Hitler, he aroused the crowds. That's the kind of leader we need today, somebody that is a doer.
Shout out to Hitler's famous ability to get things done. At number 2 is Congresswoman Mary Miller, because she actually uses the phrase,
Hitler was right. He said, whoever has the youth has the future.
Before number 1, here are some honorary mentions.
That quote was in 1925 in his book, Mein Kampf.
For 2 years, Hitler lived on the streets and practiced his oratory, then went on to lead a life that got him in the history books.
All fire, but coming in at number 1,
I like Hitler.
Kanye is simply an old-fashioned romance. He couldn't love Kim because there was only room for one special person in his heart.
Hitler has a lot of redeeming qualities. He had a really cool outfit, and he was a really good architect. There's a lot of things that I love about Hitler.
Thanks for watching, and check me out on Be Right with more content for the Hitler Hive.
The Hitler Hive.
The Hitler Hive. And there's so many more examples.
And we could have made that hour.
Yeah. There's so many more examples. There, you know, they were kind enough to leave out what's his name out there from Arizona, the congressman that's buddies with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Even see, look, there's so many more. I'm just having a short part.
Look, guys, there's so many of these fucking people.
Right,
it's hard to keep
so many. There's so many. This is just like there's so many we can't remember. Like I can't. And while these people are running around yelling and screaming about Barbie, they're not worried about the Nazis. They're not worried about this, you know, the crazies that are making comments like this referencing Hitler and praising Hitler. They're too busy attacking Barbie, for God's sakes. And you know what else they're doing? This movie, Sound of Freedom. Have you seen this, Rick? I hope not. Did you even spend money to see this, right?
I have not. I have other things.
Okay, you're breaking up a little bit, so I will say Sound of Freedom is this movie that's supposed to be about like child trafficking, and it's made like $100 million plus in its opening because it's been a huge cause celeb for the right, particularly the QAnon crazies. And it has now trickled down into Congress because Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, gave this movie a platform in the House. He bragged about how he was going to have a screening of Sound of Freedom to try to help bring bipartisanship and bring people together. Are you kidding me, McCarthy? The guy who stars in it, Jim Caviezel, is a QAnon fucking lunatic. And this movie is a QAnon fantasy freaking, dream here, and getting them all riled up. And a lot of it is based off of supposed to be true events, but it's very Hollywood, editorialized. And the guy that they're supposed to base the movie off of, there's questions about the veracity of his story too. It's a mess. So that they're okay with all of that. But no. You gotta attack Barbie. Barbie's bad now. These idiot incels are going after Barbie. Take a look at this.
The new Barbie movie is going to be a woke bleep show. Angry, feminist claptrap. I have like pages and pages of notes on this horrific piece of
Barbie, give me a break. They made a movie about the Barbie doll? I guess so.
I saw a short trailer. I thought it was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen.
We get a series of gay masturbation jokes.
Matt Gaetz' wife said there was a lack of testosterone, played by Ken.
Alienates men from women, undermines basic human values, and promotes falsehood all at the same time.
Transgender Barbie in a movie that really is a beloved kid's toy.
Trans propaganda, hyper feminine, ultra pink. It's really been taken over by the trans mafias.
This is a man who says that he is a woman.
Just another indoctrination vehicle. Every woke issue out there, from body positivity to men being women to joyless feminism.
Those are luxury issues to think about when your economy is going great. Joe Biden, he's just as clueless about what people are suffering through right now.
It looks totally terrible. It's just the kind of thing that Hollywood would do. Accommodate China.
They're trying to kiss up to the Chinese Communist Party.
What the American people are focused on are the real problems facing this country. That's what I'm focusing on.
Does Warner Brothers have to push this propaganda?
Yeah, look, that's exactly what's going on here. I have not seen the movie.
This is what they're focused on.
The irony of this, to my mind, is that Ben Shapiro is supposedly this exemplar of masculine objection to the movie Barbie. Fuck out of here.
Right. Exactly.
There are many mysteries in Ben Shapiro's world. And some of them are like why people think he's a shrill little weirdo. That sort of thing, like burning Barbie dolls when you're a 39-year-old grown-ass man because you're butthurt over a movie.
Yeah.
Over a fictional presentation based on a child's toy.
Right.
I mean, that's from our new Lincoln Barbie series today. Guys, there's a great thread on it on Twitter. You should go look. But the thing of Ben Shapiro being this exemplar of masculinity, I just find it astounding. This is a guy who could not find a clitoris if he had a GPS, a map, and a native guide. I mean, he is just like the worst.
Oh my gosh. Well,
I just went there all the way.
Well, listen.
Get over the line. There goes Wilson.
Listen, between that and DeSantis stepping over his own dick, which would be very interesting considering I'm sure he hasn't seen it in a while. So I don't know how that would work.
No, he's on Ozempic now. As someone said today.
So it makes everything smaller.
He doesn't get 1 O, but he gets the Ozempic.
Oh, God, these people. Well, listen, we bring this up because, like I said earlier in the show, the Republicans are just flailing about with this nonsense, with this woke culture bull crap, because they don't want the American people to understand that there's actually good stuff going on. Like Joe Biden's doing a great job. We got great economic news again this week. We have a 2.4% GDP growth, which no one expected. That's really good. Economists are saying that they don't expect a recession now. That's fantastic for Biden. Bidenomics is working. And they don't want the American people to know this. Instead, they want to act like this. This is our new ad today, voiced over by the great Peter Coyote, called Frenzy. Take a look.
This is what they are. This is all they have to offer. This is Trump's Republican Party. Lawless, chaotic, violent, cruel, small, and mean. In 2024, it's a choice between liberty and oppression, between your rights and their control, between education and book burning, between truth and sick propaganda, between pride and strength in the world or bowing down to dictators. The only thing Donald Trump and his imitators offer America is a country worse off than today. A country where poverty, violence, ignorance, and cruelty define their American nightmare. Fighting them will take courage, strength, determination. Are you in?
Man, that music track was
so good. So good. Because it really puts in perspective what we're up against. Sure. This is what we're up against. This is the contrast. Is Biden a little old? Yeah, but he's getting the job done, and he's not one of those other people. He's not engaging in authoritarianism and fascism and these weirdo culture war fights, and he's not doing that. He's actually a good and decent man that loves America and isn't a threat to our fucking democracy. That is the contrast. Meanwhile, while we're trying to do our part on that, we've got no labels out here still trying to convince people that running a third-party candidate, some unity ticket bullshit, is the answer. No, it's not. As we've been saying, all that's going to do is help to elect Donald Trump. That's all it's going to do. They are funded, dark money, funded by Republican billionaires. Billionaires. And people don't understand this. They think, well, on paper it sounds great. No. They want Joe Biden to lose and Donald Trump to win again. Rick, do you want to explain the LDI ad?
We've got two ads this week. One of our LDI ads from the Lincoln Democracy Institute, folks, that's our 501c4 organization, side by side with Lincoln, that put out an ad this week about dark money and about the motivations of no labels. And it's really about Mark Penn and Nancy Jacobson putting out a series of lying, false, deceptive surveys that do not reflect what America really is and believes in order to convince people that a third-party candidate can win the presidency. They cannot. There is no path to 270. There is no path to victory. They can only spoil it. And weirdly, the states they're putting themselves on the ballot in are states that Joe Biden needs every single Democratic vote, but Donald Trump doesn't.
Correct. That's correct.
So we've got two ads from this week, one LDI and one a rapid response. Let's play the LDI ad first, and then let's do the dark money rapid. I think those are both really important pieces to put together in one viewing if we can.
Yeah, let's start with the no moderates ad.
Right, no moderates.
No labels. They say they're moderates, centrists, problem solvers. It's a lie. The billionaire Republicans funding No Labels and its mastermind Mark Penn have other ideas. No Labels even admits it. Their third-party plan will steal the election from Joe Biden and hand it to Donald Trump. The Republicans who run No Labels and the mega donors bankrolling Penn and his wife Nancy Jacobson know exactly what they're buying. Penn's a Trump cheerleader, appearing on Fox dozens of times, defending the indefensible. Even advised Trump on private White House visits. Penn was fired by Bill and Hillary Clinton, rejected by Barack Obama and Joe Biden. Now he wants revenge. No Labels can't win the presidency. They admit it, but they can steal the race from Joe Biden and hand it to Donald Trump. That's been Mark Penn's plan all along.
Everybody's talking about dark money.
The third-party group No Labels.
No Labels.
No Labels.
No Labels, a dark money front for corporate interests.
Dark money.
They're what we call dark money group.
It's not required to disclose where its funding comes from.
I've invited Nancy Jacobson to talk to me about who exactly they raise their money from, and she never says yes.
Why not reveal your donors?
First of all, we're not a party.
But you guys are registering as a party.
Can you tell us who's your major funder?
No Labels is a 501c4.
We have a legal entity that doesn't disclose contributions.
They could give out the information if they wanted to. They choose not to.
We do not disclose donors.
And anyone who's still taking them as well-intentioned do-gooders need to look a little closer at the deep red intentions of their donors, their staff, and their plan.
If you added everything up, there's a distinct Republican tilt.
We're worried that there could come a moment that there's two unacceptable nominees from each party.
They say that Joe Biden is as extreme as Donald Trump.
We love you. You're very special.
So right there's a complete dishonesty. And then when they start hiding their sources of money, it can only raise suspicion.
They are funded by Republican billionaires, taking millions of dollars of Republican major donor money to elect Donald Trump for a second term.
In a two-way race, Joe Biden would beat Donald Trump 52-48. You throw no labels in, suddenly Donald Trump wins.
By doing this, you're going to elevate Trump.
No labels. That's right. I'm a believer.
We warned you.
We warned you. Those ads, folks, have been running in Washington, D.C. this week, in part to educate the American media who've been tricked by these people for a long time.
Yes.
Been told, oh, they're just do-gooders, they're moderates. And a lot of people have been reporting now, since we started running this ad, No Labels is on the run. They recognize that they have been busted and caught. They are freaking out. And a lot of investigative reporters are looking into Mark Penn and Nancy Jacobson's roles and finances and their intentions, especially because, as we point out correctly, No Labels is now staffed by a bunch of people who used to work for Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump. You think that's a coincidence? It's not.
Exactly. Yeah, because that's what we do around here. Yes. One of those people who has been kind of, because if you don't really dig in and look behind the curtain about No Labels, on the surface, it sounds like a great idea for people like me who are politically homeless that feel like, I'll never be a Republican again and should burn to the ground. I'm not really a Democrat. I'm right of center. And it's there's no party for me. That the idea of having a bipartisan kind of ticket thing sounds great in theory land. But here on Earth One, this is not the way our system works. This is not the time for that academic experiment. And it's not with these people, because what they're using that as the front for a more sinister plan. And we want no parts of that. And we want to make sure that the American people are fully educated on what that agenda actually is. So on that note, Rick Wilson, who's on your podcast this week on the enemies list?
Oh boy. So we had, you know what? I don't know who's going to land next. We recorded like 4 episodes. I can't say who it's going to be. I've been banging away. But folks, go listen to the interview this week that posted with Kevin Cruz. You will love it. It was a really great discussion. And last week, Ro Khanna and I talked about AI and politics. Fascinating discussion. So
and I think you have Ron.
Podcast. I record like 3 or 4 at a bump, and they randomly come out. I don't know when they're going to pop which ones. Because they sort of flow with the news a little bit.
Well, it's part of the intrigue. So if you subscribe and listen to the enemies list, then you get alerted when the new episodes drop. So go check them out. You'll never be disappointed. And we will be back in 2 weeks. And I'm sure between now and then, we may pop in if there is another major Trump indictment. Something that we feel we need to address and take questions from, possibly. Depends on what happens.
When Ron DeSantis declares that his campaign will be looking to see other constituencies, and they would like you to respect their privacy at this point.
Right. That's right. Other than that, we'll see you back here in 2 weeks.
See you, folks.